Our next panel is really incredible. The next cannabinoid framework, consumer safety, access, and regulatory balance. I am so excited that we're going to be talking about consumer safety because it's such an important part of our industry and it helps legitimize us. As we know, cannabis is not a right, it's a privilege. So we need to be focusing on this. So I'm excited to hear what our next panel has to say. So I'd love to welcome to the stage Charlie Alovisetti from Vicente, our moderator. Give it up for Charlie.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to invite my panel to join. So Francis, Paige, Jared, Jim, if you could come on stage. So yeah, we're going to be talking about what's called the next cannabinoid framework, but basically we're talking about November 12th, and we're going to try and keep this panel a little bit more advanced than some of these sort of like an introductory thing. So we're going to move fast, and we're going to assume some level of baseline knowledge here because everyone's been in the industry for a while. So I'd like to give everyone a chance to say a quick 1 or 2 sentences about themselves. So why don't we'll start with Francis, please.
Yeah, I'm Francis Creighton. I'm the president and CEO of the Wine and Spirits Wholesalers of America. We're the only alcohol trade association that came out for regulation, not prohibition. And I'm not from the industry. I'm mainly a Capitol Hill staffer for many, many years. So when we get to the Congress stuff, we can talk some fun stuff.
My name is Jared Stanley. I'm a co-founder of Charlotte's Web, and I serve as CEO of DeFloria, which is advancing a full-spectrum cannabinoid drug through the FDA to alleviate symptoms of irritability and aggression with autism. I also am a founding member of One Hemp, where we support scientific studies, Congress for a sensible policy solution within the cannabinoid framework.
My name is Paige Figi. I am the executive director of Coalition for Access Now. It's a 501c4. We work primarily in DC, in Washington, DC, on policy, state capitals when I have to. I'm Charlotte's mother. Thank you.
I'm Jim Higdon, a co-founder of Cornbread Hemp based in Louisville, Kentucky. We make full-spectrum CBD products and THC edibles and low-dose THC beverages in the 3-tier system. And we're active on Capitol Hill with the U.S. Hemp Roundtable, the WSWA, and One Hemp, working to get a solution to the hemp problem that we're currently facing.
Thanks. So I guess starting off, Paige, for you, could you tell us a little bit about the history of patients in this space and how hemp has helped people?
Sure. So my coalition is we're the consumer voice and I'm going to call it CBD. I think everyone in the room, I'm not going to say this whole mouthful of a sentence, but really what we support is the health products, the original intention, full spectrum, non-intoxicating, whole plant, what Charlotte used, and that's all I work on. I don't work on cannabis. I don't work on beverages or any kind of 7-Eleven. I didn't work for 16 years on this to legalize 7-Eleven gas station products. It's not my lane. It's simply to support the consumers. So we've been asking Congress for many, many years to deschedule and regulate these products. So people had emergency medical access. That's how this started. It started with Charlotte, patient 0, the media calls her, back before we called it CBD. It was a wild success for treating her untreatable seizure disorder. We've come a long way since then, and she's, like you said, is sort of a household name. But it's still just as critical that there's a consumer support. I don't call them consumers. These are human beings. These are medical patients. There's a sliver still of a population that use CBD, and it is life or death for them to not have access. So as we discuss the November 12, what is essentially a ban, the McConnell ban for most of these products, the vast majority of these products. This is a death sentence for a person like Charlotte. This is absolutely necessary for her to live a normal life. And so that's what I support. That's all I work on. It takes about 15 years to pass a federal bill with a low single-digit % chance of it working. And so it's very serious work. I work with very serious champions in Congress. I work with the President of the United States. I work with HHS. And I feel confident we're going to find a permanent solution to this, but it's very, very difficult work. It's very, very important, very serious work.
Thank you. So, Jared, and this is too broad of a question for such a short period of time, but if you could just give us, in your view, you know, the big picture, how did we get here, right? How are we facing this November 12th ban?
Yeah. There's a lot to say there. I think it's important to step back a little bit. Go back to even the 2014 Farm Bill where we operated under a pilot program, and that's really where this all started. And I remember sitting at a table and making the decision with the first board of Charlotte's Web, 2 of them are here in this room, and we decided to ship to all 50 states a full spectrum product with low levels, naturally occurring levels of THC. And it's important to remember that because for 4 years we went by in the industry and there was no abuse. There was no intoxicating. Companies were intended for wellness and supporting the consumer and the therapeutic outcome and the potential for cannabinoids. The 2018 Farm Bill came, and it was a tremendous success in that it took us from a gray area to clear legal statute. So for access, it meant everything. The problem is there's an unintended consequence, and the loophole in the Farm Bill allowed what I would call opportunists to come and flood the market with what Paige just said, you know, gas station weed. So years later, we have THC products bypassing state cannabis sales, taxes, no regulation, and this was never the intent of Congress. So we don't have legislation that was meant to fix the loophole. However, here we are now, the ban comes in place just this last November, and a month later, the President signs an executive order not only to move cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3, but also the rollout of a pilot program for seniors. And then there's a tweet about full spectrum and the intent of the administration. There's a letter for full spectrum. Over and over we hear full spectrum. So the point is that these products that got swept into the ban never caused it in the first place. I was at a after party last night, thank you Beard Brothers, and people are we use in this industry, and I don't think anyone was using a tincture to get high. So we've got to go and fix this, and there's a clear intent, and I believe we will.
Thanks. So to sort of pivot off that, Jim, could you give us a little bit, there's been a lot in the news, even something that dropped yesterday in terms of fixes to this, right? So could you give us a little bit of information about the legislative fixes, the letter that the White House produced to support reform, and where things currently stand?
Sure. So just to build off Jared's point, the White House remains engaged on this issue since the ban was put in place in November. Less than a month or a month later, the White House issues an executive order calling on Congress to fix it. There's been the president has posted on Truth Social, the White House sent a letter to Andy Barr giving him guidance for the bill that he's working on. And that Andy Barr bill has a lot of good things in it. The last versions that we've seen haven't been perfect, and that feedback is ongoing. So hopefully we see a final version of that bill sooner rather than later filed. But meanwhile, in addition to the Andy Barr project, Morgan Griffith in the House has been working on something for quite some time. I know Paige and her folks have been giving a lot of information to members of Congress for whom this product, this category, is not their native habitat. Morgan Griffith is a teetotaler, and this is not something that he's engaged on, but it's important for him to find regulations because he just believes that the product should be regulated and not prohibited. On the Senate side, we have work being done as well. Ron Wyden remains very much engaged, and there's some Republican senators who are poking their heads up to tackle this issue with the delicate dance of around Senator McConnell and his exit from Congress at the end of this year, a lot of Republican senators don't want to step on his toes on this stuff, so that remains a big challenge for us to solve this problem in a way that gives McConnell a win without it causing the end of access to these products, in creating, one of the great things about the 2018 Farm Bill is it ended the notion of cannabinoid refugees for these products. And this is about to put cannabinoid refugees back on the map for the states that still don't have access to medical cannabis.
Thanks. I guess to just kind of build on that a little bit more, what do you think are likely mechanisms to see this? Is this something that you could see done through reconciliation, through the budgeting process?
No.
No.
The only thing that in the reconciliation process that would come out the other side is the tax. So we have the ban language still in place, and then we get a tax on the other side of it. So the tax alone isn't going to solve this problem. We need to redefine hemp, and you can't redefine hemp in a reconciliation package.
So we need legislation to move forward
But
to catch up.
furthermore, going back into the specific nature of the McConnell ban, it called on FDA to define container and define the list of cannabinoids to be banned within 90 days of enactment, and that put a deadline somewhere in February, and that deadline came and went, and the FDA still has not given its definition of container or banned cannabinoids. So strictly speaking, come November, we still don't know what's legal or not. There's no way for the industry to pivot to create a compliant product because we don't know from the FDA's perspective what the definition of container is. And so until we have that clarity, we don't know what's banned or not banned. And so there's a real opportunity to dig into the exact nature of the language to get a fix before it takes effect.
And I'd build on that a little bit. While we have to get this fixed in statute, changing the hemp definition, there is a hemp definition in the CMMI program, and it defines hemp products at not more than 3 milligrams of THC per serving. Now, ideally, we can get those definitions to sync up because whatever we do in statute here has to support that program. So by getting this fixed, it sets that program up for success. And I think we all know, this is a pilot program within CMMI. The more successful this can be with therapeutic, efficacious products, the higher this rises for cannabis. Because what's coming next? Cannabis reform. This doesn't stop at CBD, and that's why it's so important that we get this right.
Thanks. So moving a little bit away from that, just a question for you, Francis, because you're from the alcohol side. So I think a lot of times, if you could just shed a little light on us in terms of how the alcohol industry sees this, how the alcohol industry is not necessarily united in how it sees this, and why you view yourself as an ally in this process, and why I think multiple industries in this country sort of want or sort of begging for responsible regulation.
Yeah, thanks. I got here about 3.5 years ago, and when I got here, we changed our policy to say that Congress should go ahead and regulate these products. Why? Why should Congress regulate these products? Well, they're intoxicating. We sell an intoxicating product. We're heavily regulated. If someone else is selling an intoxicating product, we think it should be regulated, and that we've got a pretty good model for how you should do it, right? I mean, you want to make sure that what's in the package is what the label says is in the package. We do that. You want to make sure it's taxed correctly. We do that. We do all of these things. It just makes sense, right? I mean, what's the lesson coming out of Prohibition? Well, when we came out of Prohibition, we said that the product is legal. We're going to make it available under rules, right? Some places you can't buy on Sunday. Some places you can buy in a supermarket, some places you can't. But you could get it virtually anywhere, even if it's in specialized places. And we're going to have rules around how it's produced, how it's packaged, and if you break the rules, you go to jail, right? I mean, that's really it. And so we functionally don't have an illicit market in alcohol anymore. Now, of course, it's a different product, right? There's things that make it unique. But we thought that made sense, and that there's just a sense that our industry could share our experience and help this industry kind of get onto a good place. And we thought we would come out for this, and we would say, all right, let's go, and then the rest of the industry would follow after us. And, we're like Frank the Tank in Old School, streaking through the neighborhood, and no one's behind us. In fact, they're actively working against what we're doing. And for us, that's very frustrating, because we work with our supplier partners all the time, whether it's beer or spirits or wine. And we love working with them, and on this one, they are actively working against us and are really pushing us and pushing back on us in a hard way. We're not even unified within our tier, right? We have some people who say, why are we getting involved in this? We're the wine and spirits wholesalers. Why are we getting involved in this issue? And ultimately, we believe that public health and public safety demand that responsible players get into this market. If it's going to be available to consumers, then it has to be regulated. It's just common sense. And we have a lot we can bring to this debate, and I love everything you guys have been saying so far, and I have enjoyed working with everybody on this.
So kind of a follow-up question there. I mean, because we were talking earlier about the supplier tier, particularly the beer people who are sort of quite anti, hemp beverages. And I realize we should talk about this in a second here, but we are kind of talking about two different product categories, right? There's hemp beverages, which is sort of, an adult beverage basically, and then we're also talking about hemp that people are taking for wellness or medical reasons, right? So it's two different things, but two different things I think can coexist within the same regulatory framework if it's done right. But from the supplier tier, what do you think would change their mind? I mean, I think they see this as a threat to their sales, but what's going to convince, if this went away and their sales continue to decline, would that convince them?
Yeah, I think it's a fundamental misreading of the market to suggest that the reason why beverage alcohol sales are down is because these products are available. They're very different products. They're consumed differently in different occasions, and that's okay. That's fine that they are. But my bet is that once this product is fully legal and it's out there, that you're going to see a rush of these same companies who are pushing back against us today going in and investing in a big way. We saw this, of course, previously with Canopy and with other products, and we know that some suppliers are looking at this. And I expect in 10 years they're all going to be in it. But right now, I think that they're looking at the major retailers who sell these products, and they're seeing these products on shelves that used to contain their products, and they're saying, look, see what happened. The fact is, if these products go away, their products aren't going back on the shelves. They're going to save it for something else. They're going to put something else on those shelves. Wine, beer, spirits are not down because of cannabis. And if cannabis leaves those regulated channels, right, because it's not leaving, it's just leaving the regulated channels, it's not like we're going to end up with the third golden age of wine. That's not what's going to happen here.
Yeah, I was just, I guess my thought on that, we were saying earlier, I said, wine has been around for 8,000 years, right? I mean, I don't think wine is going anywhere. It's older than civilization, really. It's certainly older than the English language. And obviously there's a bit of a correction going on right now, but I don't think that means that it's going to disappear. So I guess my next question is for both Jared and Paige in terms of, we talked about the different groups that are supportive of responsible regulation, and talked a little bit how they're, within this kind of cannabinoid category, there are multiple use cases, multiple products, right? How are you looking at the push for responsible regulation, and how can people be involved?
Let's take that.
I'll throw my part in, I'll let you take the majority of that. What we're pushing and what Congress is asking for, and everyone I work with, is consumer first for public health and access, and science backed. And so that's what we follow, that really pragmatic, almost medical lane. And so that's how we work on it. So I'm very happy to see all the innovation and the products. I don't work in this world. I'm not invited for many reasons, but I'm typically not invited to industry events. It's not my audience, but I think you should understand and know what's going on and who I am and what we've been working on. But it's always consumer first, science backed, and I think that you would back that up with your group, One Hemp, that is who I bring to DC as I don't represent the industry, but I talk to them, and I talk to One Hemp. They are typically, Congress looks at the companies that are self-regulating, the companies that parents chose for their very, very sick children. Yes, there's many, many more people who use this than children, but that's the gold standard in Congress, are those companies, the science-backed, self-regulating.
I'd say a perfect example of science-backed is, where did the CMMI definition for hemp come from? And it was the Dr. Brian Vandry study from Johns Hopkins, which was the first impairment study. Because the question is, and for everyone in this room, what's the limit? Like, what's the limit, the impairment limit? Where do you get high at? And while that's different for everyone, all of our endocannabinoid systems are a bit different, at least we have a piece of literature and a clinical study that says, here's what we found. This was given to the White House, and the White House endorsed their support to a hemp definition for that program, and it was based on that study. So these are examples where we need to continue to evolve as an industry. When we have gaps in understanding, we need to go find the answers. But, I would say more so, even just to build on Paige, the consumer is the tip of the spear for everything we do. And I don't think the debate is about, everyone on this panel wants regulation. It's, do we regulate or do we ban an entire category? And, if a restaurant violates a health code, we don't ban restaurants. We enforce health codes. So that's why I know this is fixable. It will get fixed. It's simple. But for everyone in this room, for cannabis at large, we were, before CBD, before Charlotte's Web, we were in medical cannabis. And I'll never forget when our patient count hit 100 patients, all cancer patients. When you have a cancer patient, that validates everything that you do. And Charlotte Figi validated this entire category, the entire industry. There was more cannabis reform that happened since 2014 from the heels of that little girl, and thank you, Paige, and that whole story for everyone in this room. So we look in the future for cannabis reform, which still needs to happen. This isn't about hemp. This is about the plant. It's one plant trying to find therapeutic outcomes and potential for cannabinoids, and it's our job to show Congress that we can regulate that therapeutic potential. If we show that we're going to ban it, that's one step backwards for all of cannabis reform, and we can't set that example in DC. So what happens these next 3 to 4 months? Be on the lookout, do what you need to do, call your legislatures, engage your consumers, because the more responsible and validation we can build as a cannabinoid industry, the further along and the more cannabis reform we're going to see across the entire platform, and the more we unlock, the quicker we unlock the full potential healing of this plant.
Just a quick thing. You talked about engaging your consumers, right? I come out of Democratic politics, but when I talk to Republican members of Congress, Republican senators, they know that it's not just Democrats who are using these products, that it's everyone. It's older people and it's younger people, it's men, it's women, it's working people, it's retired people, it's everybody, right? And for those members of Congress who don't know that, you can help by helping your customers understand that these products are going to go away, and that they need to hear from, the members of Congress need to hear from your consumers. It's really critical that we do that. We've had some tools that we've put out to help you make that case, but it's really, having people call their members of Congress here really does matter.
Yeah, just to speak a little bit on that, and I'd like to, turn it back to the group after what I say, is, there are a number of advocacy organizations that you can get involved with, and it can be helpful because they can help, organize calling campaigns to your electeds, write-in campaigns. These things do make a difference. Personally, I guess, one organization that my law firm has been supportive of is the Hemp Beverage Alliance. And if you go onto their website, you can sign up for their alerts, and, they help coordinate reaching out to elected officials to push for, responsible regulations, which we're sort of all in favor of. I mean, I guess so I guess, I'd turn it back to the group here. I mean, do people have organizations they want to sort of, I know, Jared, I know you've got your organization.
I would plug, not even our organization as much as certainly for this room, if you don't support the Realm of Caring Foundation in generating data across the entire plant, there was a lot that happened behind the curtain for the Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 move, and it was based on the data. And that's the type of science and efficacy and real-world signals that we need to see as an industry. So that's the level. Let science, let the consumer lead policy.
Yeah, I'll jump in. We do an unbranded call to action when there's a bill to push. One little interesting fact, I know if you know me, I've probably said this to you. I've heard this for many, many years, well over a decade. It's 60. If an office, a senator, or a U.S. rep gets 60 calls or emails on an issue, that's a top of the pile issue. So we can round that up to 100. There's 535 members of Congress. That's 53,500. That's it. Maybe that's a lot. That's it. That's all a person needs to make this a number one issue on their desk. It's kind of a depressing number to me, but it's a fact. And I've heard this for many years in DC. So when we get people to click that link or send that email, we write the script, we write the email, we make it so easy, and then unbrand it and share it, because we don't have access to every company's people, your humans, your consumers. But that's the recipe. It's not easy. I wouldn't say it's uncomplicated. I wouldn't say it's simple, it's hard work, but we made it very uncomplicated. And if everyone hasn't at least reached out to your 2 senators and your U.S. rep, then you really have no business complaining about the regulations that you don't like when they come down the line.
Yeah, the most valuable tool that every company has, every consumer-facing company, brand, retailer, is your customer email list. Your active customer email list is an engagement tool that you can deploy those folks to talk to the member of Congress through very simple email links. And it doesn't matter the quality of that communication. In the end of the day, it's just a tally sheet that a junior staffer hands to a senior staffer, and to Paige's point, they count them. And when those numbers start to add up, with the U.S. Hemp Roundtable last year, we sent 100,000 emails into Congress. And ultimately last year was not a successful year for us, but there's certainly know that there's hemp consumers out there that are active and talking to the member of Congress. And so for folks who have customer lists, it's important to treat those customers like engaged citizens and get them the tools they need to reach out to the members of Congress.
And we're not asking for your data. We're making the tools available to you so that you can ask your consumers to do something. We're not saying send us your list and we'll send something. We're going to give you the tools and you send it out to people. So you don't need to send us your data. Your data is safe. Keep it with yourself.
And I'm going to say one last thing before I get thrown off the stage, which is, again, it's totally free to reach out to your representatives, totally free to email your representatives. I think there's a lot of conspiratorial thinking in America today about people thinking, this special action group is like pulling the strings behind the scenes, what have you. But at the end of the day is, if people really care about an issue, and if they're willing to vote based on their issue, and they're willing to reach out to their representative based on the issue, oftentimes they get their way, because, the mass, it's a big country and a lot of people are sort of apathetic about a lot of issues. So if as an industry, we don't have to be united on everything, but we all want responsible regulation. So, sign up for these email lists, reach out to your elected. These people at these offices are very nice. They get a lot of crank calls at these offices. So if you call and you're polite and you're professional, they're very happy to talk to you. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Charlie, and everybody on the panel. Great panel. Let's give it up for them one more time.